Hello everyone, this is Professor Nait-Brahim. I'm your teacher of this module entitled Introduction to Civilization. First, I'd like to welcome you in this new academic year. I understand this is your first year. It's a new environment, it's a new methodology, and this is your first experience of university or college studies within these special circumstances, that is through distance learning. And I'd like to reassure you and tell you that what you have here from a distance, I hope we will meet very soon and discuss it, and to allow you to ask questions, raise queries, and have the opportunity to get answers and have a real interactive exchange. So I don't want you to worry. I don't want you to stress out. Um, I'm here to explain a few aspects of the course, but I promise that we will have time and the chance to discuss this in more details and allow you to discuss all the matters, the notions that you will see in this uh, presentation. Right. First, as the title indicates, this is Introduction to Civilization. So it means that we will be we will be discussing the word civilization. Actually, we will see it's not a word, it's not a simple word, it is what we call a concept. 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 A concept is a word that bears a specific meaning and a whole idea, a whole reflection on a particular aspect in life. And when we say civilization, it's not like when we say table or chair. A table is very simple. It refers to an object. Everybody identifies what a table is. As soon as you say table, you have a picture in your mind, you have a representation in your mind of a table, whatever this table might be. So you have different types of table. While when you say civilization, we go far beyond a mere picture, a mere image that you will have in mind, because civilization is a whole understanding, is a whole conception of various phenomena, plural of phenomenon, that are involved in human life. And this is what we will try to understand throughout this course. Um, this presentation will be accompanied with a document, a PDF document, in which I explain what the objectives of this course, of this module are, what the prerequisites, it means the things that you must have in order to really understand the course. You will also have in this document a syllabus, that is the program, the different parts of the program that we will be dealing with. And you will also have the type of evaluation we will have, that is how you are going to be tested and how you are going to be marked. And at the end of the document, you will find also a bibliography, a suggested bibliography, that is a list of books that are important, that you are invited to read in order to have a better understanding of the program and even go beyond the program. It is very important to bear in mind that this module is essential. It is essential because it is the beginning, an introduction to things that you will be dealing with throughout the next 4 years. This is your first year. You will have 4 years left, and each year you will deal with civilization. In the second and the third years, you will have what we call British civilization. That is, you will tackle the life of the people that we call the British, that is, the people who live in Britain, their history, their culture, and how actually their way of life has evolved over time. In the fourth and fifth year, you will deal with another civilization, the one that we refer to as American civilization. So you see that your understanding and your mastery of this module in the first year will give you the means and the potential and the resources to deal with these modules in the next years. So the better your understanding is this year of this module, the better your performance and understanding of the other modules will be in the next years. The other thing, this module requires involvement, that is your personal involvement in the course, that is the fact your readiness to understand, to ask questions when you don't or when you need further explanations, to interact with me and with your classmates, because this is university, this is college, and here there is a part of autonomy that you have to develop, that is that capacity to rely on yourselves and be able to reflect on things, have your own opinion, your own view. Of course, when I say your own opinion and your own view, it doesn't come out of the blue. It's not something that you form alone, but it is an opinion, a view that is based on a very important thing that you have to start doing if you haven't already, which is reading. Reading and reading and reading, whether for this module or for others. It's true that modules differ, subjects differ. Probably there are subjects where a lot of reading is not required, and probably if you take grammar, for instance, it's more a module that will and ask for doing exercises, doing activities, while this module and some others like linguistics will require reading in order to have a better understanding of the notions and issues and concepts that you deal with in these particular subjects. So the readings that you do, the reading that you do here now in this module is a reading that will serve you for the rest of your studies in the school. And if you start it as a habit, it will become, if you start it now, it will become a habit It will become part of you. It will become a sort of second nature that you on which you will rely for the rest of your studies. If you don't do it this year, you will never do it. You will never do it because you will get used to just attending the class, attending the classes, and be contented with what you get in the classes, and then answer exam questions. But in exam questions, as you will see in the PDF document that accompanies this presentation, in the PDF document, part of the criteria, part of the criteria on which you are evaluated, on which you are assessed, is your capacity, to form an opinion. And you can only form an opinion if you supplement this opinion with views that come from scholars, that come from specialists and experts in this particular domain, on this particular subject. And this comes through reading, nothing else. Of course, you have other ways, for instance, discussing with people, whether teachers or other people who might have also an opinion on this particular subject. You have today with social media and with technology various forms also of getting information, like for instance YouTube. On YouTube you have a lot of interesting videos discussing the matters that we will be seeing throughout the year. And you have also the internet that offers all kinds of articles and even books that are mentioned in the bibliography, and that you can download also, and that you can find in different websites. Right, now we're going to move to the second slide, in which I'm going to discuss the first notion in relation to civilization. Right. First, I'd like to say something. The first slides of this lecture are mainly based on the book of one very important sociologist, an American sociologist named Carroll Quigley. And this book is entitled The Evolution of Civilizations, a book published in 1979. It is mentioned in the bibliography in the PDF document that accompanies this presentation. So even the text that you see here, most of it is taken from the book. So what I'm doing here is trying to explain these ideas and these notions. First, what I would like you to know is this particular distinction between what we call nature and culture. I mind you here that the concept, the notion of culture will be dealt with later. For the time being, just take it as it is. Take it as a notion, as a concept that refers to what opposes nature. That is, in life, we have things that are natural, that comes from nature. For instance, the fact that we are men or women biologically. This is biology. We don't choose it, we don't make it. It is natural. The fact that we have this particular body, this is natural. The environment, the natural environment that surrounds us is natural. The fact that we have parents is a natural thing, a natural phenomenon. So this is nature. And it is opposed here to all what is culture. And when we say culture, it means all things that are made by the human being. The human being makes things, creates things, and what the human being creates, what mankind makes, is what is referred to as culture. For instance, all types of technological tools are part of culture. Certain behaviors, for instance, dancing is part of culture. Singing is part of culture. Art is part of culture because all these things are human made and they are opposed to what is not human made, that is what nature makes. And like the human being himself is a natural thing. So here, this distinction is very important to understand the development of human beings and to understand later civilization. So in the world, we have natural beings like the human beings and like the animals, for instance, or what we call the flora, that is the trees and the plants, and the fauna, the animals, and we have the human being. Now, animals and human beings are natural beings. They are made by nature. They are part of nature. But they do not function in the same way. Animals, when they are born, instinctively, it means based on their instincts, they can become very quickly autonomous. That is, they know exactly what they have to do in order to survive. They there are animals that can become autonomous and know exactly what to do the first day they are born. There are other animals for which uh, they need time in order to adapt to the new environment in order to be autonomous and survive. Human beings are different. As it is mentioned here in the slide, I'm going to read this text. Contrary to the animal, the helpless condition of the newborn human. The helpless condition, that is, the human being is born with the condition, with a condition in which he is helpless. That is, he cannot take care of himself. And why you have this phenomenon? It's because the human being has a neurological system, a muscular system that is at the beginning undeveloped, uncoordinated. When babies are born, uh, their uh, their brain is not fully developed, so they do not see exactly what we see as adults. They do not feel what we feel as adults. They cannot move in the way adults move. That is, when I say move, depending, of course, on the physical state of the person, but when the body is not physically impaired, is not handicapped, the way the baby moves and the things that the baby does are far less developed than when this baby becomes an adult. Why? Because in the brain there are neurons, there are cells that are not connected yet, that are not fully developed yet. And this induces this incapacity, incapacity to do certain things that they could do once they are adults. So this is the natural state of the human being. The human being, the more they grow, the more they develop, the more their cells are connected, their neurons are connected in the brain in order to be able to do things they do when they become adults or when they grow. Now, what does that imply? It implies that when the human being is born, they are born with certain uh, capacities to do things, but it doesn't mean that they will do them. That is, they have that potential. When we are born, we're born with our sight, with our senses, like sight, like hearing, like the touch, like taste. So we have this potential, we have this capacity to learn, to absorb the information that we have in our environment, and this will help us grow and develop. But, and this is what we're going to see in the next slide, but as I said, these capacities that nature gives to the human being when they are born are not enough for our development. That is, we're all born with sight, except those who unfortunately are physically impaired and they are blind. So when you are born with your sight, that is, you with your eyes which can see, you are able to learn many things, to be accustomed to many things. Now, the fact that we all are born with sight, for instance, doesn't mean that later we will learn the same things, that we will develop in the same way. Why? Because it's true that we generally, roughly in general, we have the same nature as human beings. That is, we have the same capacities. That is, we have the same, actually, the word is potential. We are potentially capable of doing the same things, of learning the same things. But unfortunately or fortunately, we do not learn the same things. We do not develop in the same way, partly because of our biology, but mainly it's because of our environment. And read here the text on this slide number 3. The way in which these, that is, you remember the neurons, the cells, are connected up, or even the fact that they come to be connected up at all, depends on what happens to the child, how he is trained, and how he grows. That is, our nature provides us with potentialities, with capacities, but the environment within which we grow, the people that surround us, the parents, the family, the siblings, the teachers, the neighbors, these are going to determine, to influence, to impact on our development, our growth. So, because these are going to teach us things, these are going to train us, and in this way, we are going to become different people depending on the environment within which we grow. And that's why, in the second part of the text on slide 3, we can read the things he, that is the human being, is capable of becoming originally, we can speak of as his human nature. So we all have that human nature, which is roughly the same. But the things he does become, that is, what we become later as the result of experience and training, that is, because of the influence of the environment, we call this personality. So we are all born with a human nature, with capacities, with potentialities, which are roughly the same, but our environment is going to influence our growth, our development, and because these environments are different, and because we react differently to these environments, we are going to develop different personalities. So what we are going to realize is different. You take two individuals who might grow in the same environment. Take, for example, two brothers or two sisters that grow within the same environment, the smallest, the most immediate environment, like the family. But these two people are going to develop two different personalities. Why? Because although there is part of their environment which is common, but these two individuals are going maybe to have different friends, are going to watch different movies, are going to read different books, are going to have different friends on social media, are going to watch different things on social media. So in this way, their personality is going to be different because they have had a different experience of that same environment. Although they might be trained in the same way, they might go to the same school and to the same classroom and be with the same teacher, but their experience is going to be different one way or another, and that means that they're going to develop different personalities. Now, what does that mean? And this is what we'll see next. Well, this means that our nature provides us with what we call those potentialities or those potential qualities. It means the things that we might do, we might realize that we might be capable of realizing. But out of all of the span of potentialities, of capacities, we human beings actually develop only a few of them, and some develop these part of capacities and others develop that part of capacities, and in this way you have a personality which was of course less actually wide, more actually or narrower than the qualities that you might realize. And that's why when we grow, the more we grow, the more we are capable of developing new qualities, because we have in our nature things that sometimes actually are dormant. They lie there, we don't explore them and we don't exploit them. But then when we reach a certain age, or when we have an experience, or when we meet a person, somebody, we are going to develop that capacity that was there in our nature, and then that is revealed thanks to a particular experience at the age of 10 or 20 or 40 or 60. There are people who become good musicians at the age of 40, and there are people who realize that they are writers at the age of 50. There are people who become engineers at the age of 50, because they find out that they have a capacity that they have never explored and that they have never exploited. And this is what makes the difference between human beings within the same environment. Now here we see the different types of capacities that that human nature gives us. We humans, we have different types of capacities, of potentialities, of readiness to become something or to be something. Because why do we have these potentialities? Because we have needs. We have different needs as humans. We have four a range of four types of needs. You may read books and find more. You can have a different typology, but this is the one that is presented advanced by Carol Quigley, remember, in his book The Evolution of Civilizations. So you have what we call material needs. So we humans naturally, we all need food, clothing, and shelter. Um, they differ from one environment to another, but roughly these material needs are important to us. There is the second type of potentialities of natural capacities is what is related to sex. Sex for the sake of reproduction. That is the fact of giving birth to children. Human beings need to have children in order to maintain, to sustain mankind, the race. The third case, the third type, is the what we call the gregarious needs. That is the fact of the fact that we need companionship. We need to be with others. Men need to be with women. Men need to have friends. Men need to have companionship. The next type of needs is what is referred to as psychic needs. Psychic needs, for instance, we have uh, the desire, for instance, to know the meaning of things. That is, our mind, our brain is curious. We want to learn about our environment. When you walk on the street, you see things. It's rare that you don't care. When you see something happening, you are curious. You want to know what this is about, what is happening, what is taking place. So these psychic needs are important, and sometimes we refer to that psychic need as curiosity. Of course, it differs from one person to another, and also this is also partly influenced by our environment. You have environments that encourage curiosity, and there are environments that discourage curiosity, and that's why we said that human nature is opposed to culture, and human nature provides us with capacities, but then these capacities doesn't mean that we are going to realize all of them. That sometimes we don't realize some of them, and that's why we have different personalities. And part of this personality is that curiosity that comes from our nature, but this curiosity is not always satisfied. It's not always encouraged. Sometimes it is discouraged. And who does this? It's actually in our environment within which we grow that whether either encourages or discourages curiosity. And the result of this is that sometimes we have people who are very curious and who learn a lot of things, and others who are not and who learn much less. And this gives, in the end, people who are different, who have different personalities, and who realize different things in their life. Now, these individuals, with their different personalities, with their human capacities, with their material, psychological, gregarious, and sexual needs, come together to live together to form what we call a society. Of course, history of mankind has made it that human beings started as individuals and then have come and then felt maybe the need to come together and live together as a group which grows to become a very complex organization that we call a society. As it is said here on slide number 6, society is a humanly created organization or system. This is important because here we see that the society is not a natural phenomenon. That is, humans came together and decided to live together and form a united group that we call society. Of course, in the history of mankind, this did not happen overnight. It took years and years for human beings to decide to come together as a group that grows larger and larger to form societies and that we call today nations, and countries. So this humanly created organization or system establishes interrelationships between its members. And these members who come together, who decide to live within the same geographical environment, live together and establish relationships and decide on a common way of dealing with things, with of course distinctions, but there is a common way of dealing with things, with life in this particular environment within this society. Right. Now, this society develops a way of life because it has become a unity, it has become a common body that whose members, share many things, share the space, share the resources, share the danger, share the fate, and this brings these individuals to agree on rules that are going to guide, to lead their life together. And they establish more and more relationships. And because they tend to have a very complex system of relationships between them, which are different from the relationships that they establish with people that we will refer to as outsiders, that are outside that society. So we call this group a society, and the other group that with which they have less or fewer relationships, that is going to be a different society. So when you have societies, it's because you have various groups. Each group establishes specific relationships between its members, and these relationships are very specific to that group, and this is what makes that group a society. Now, in what way this relates to our notion, the important notion that we discuss in this lecture, in this course, that is civilization. And this is what we're going to see in the next slide. So when human beings decide to come together, live together, establish relationships within a limited geographical space for an unlimited period of time, and share various things in that space, share resources, share principles, share rules, this becomes more and more complex, more and more sophisticated. And when this way of life that is specific to that society becomes that complex and that sophisticated, we call it a civilization. So a civilization is a general way of life, complex and sophisticated, that is actually the way a group of people that we name society has chosen to organize their common common thing, their common life together. And that civilization is actually all the products of that human interaction, because these people come together and interact, that is, have relationships uh, between each other, and these relationships give birth to many products, whether they are material or non-material, and they have an experience together, an experience of living together. And this general organization, the products that come out of that organization, or out of these relationships within the same group of people that we name society, This is what we call civilization. And societies, all societies have their own way of organizing life. And so, as human beings, they all contribute to that general human civilization that, of course, changes over time because of the different changes that its members, the members of society and the members of societies, bring to that way of life. For instance, inventions bring change civilization, because imagine life before internet and life now. It is drastically different. Imagine life before, for instance, the invention of television. Imagine life before invention of writing. Imagine life before the discovery, for instance, of a continent, of the American continent. So all these things that happen in history bring changes in the civilization. Why we say it brings changes in that civilization? Is because it brings changes in the organization of life, in the relationships between people, in the products that these people are going to use in their daily life, in their daily chores, in their way of dealing with the different things, events that happen in their lives. So, this is what civilization is. Of course, we have societies over history have developed, and at a given time in history, there were societies that were very, very simple. Those societies in the past that were based on what agriculture, or what we call pastoral herds, that is, societies that were cattle breeders, that is, that raised animals. So these societies were very simple producing societies that had a very simple life. You have, for instance, tribes and ethnic groups here and there on different continents in history that had that type of life, and they were uh, very simple societies. But when societies have grown complex and sophisticated, they have been able to give birth to complex systems of organization that we refer to as civilizations. Of course, the distinction between a simple producing society and a civilization, that is a society with a complex organization, a sophisticated organization, is not easy actually to draw. There is no clear-cut distinction. So sometimes we have tribal organizations we have today uh, in South America, in Africa. We have tribes that have a very simple life. Still, many scholars consider that these societies, these tribes, have developed a civilization. So the sophistication is not, according to me, um, um, a valid, or at least the sole criterion on which we distinguish between simple producing societies and civilizations. But all in all, according to Quigley, we consider that civilizations today are those social organizations that mainly have a writing system and a city life. A writing system and a city life. Though this actually idea is debatable and it's quite controversial. And if you read books, you will find that this is not something that all scholars adhere to, and you might have different opinions. But let's say that um, we're going to agree on that definition, which might be temporary. And as I said, this is very important. It's very important in this module, in this subject, to be open-minded and to be autonomous and reflect and have opinion and read and read and read, because civilization, as I said at the beginning, is a concept. It is a complex word, a concept, and a concept is a word that bears various meanings, that on which there are many views, many opinions, and you might have a group of scholars that define civilization in a way, and another group of scholars defining it in a different way. And what you see here is just one opinion, one view. And according to that view, a civilization is a producing society that has a writing system or communication system and a city life, that is architecture. And actually, if you go to very simple societies, those simple producing societies like tribes, they do have a communication system, although it might not be as sophisticated as the one we have. Still they have a communication system and they are capable of communicating the way we do, as needed by their society. And city life, that is architecture, that capacity to build and to provide shelter. Now, even simple producing societies have architecture, so that's why, as I said earlier, the distinction between simple producing societies and civilization is not that easy, right? Now, what we're going to stop here as the last slide for this first lecture and anticipate on what will come next. What will come next is the instances of civilization. What are the types of civilizations that exist and that we had? One characteristic of civilization is the fact that, as said here, civilizations are born, they grow, and they die. We have many civilizations that existed in the past and that disappeared, and sometimes great civilizations. The pharaohs, for instance, had a great civilizations. The Romans had a great civilization. The Greeks had a great civilizations. The Muslims had a great civilization. Now, these civilizations were born and grew and reached uh, top level and then disappeared. One, right, they disappeared. Of course, it doesn't mean that everything is gone. It doesn't mean that they have not left marks, and sometimes indelible marks that led to the birth and to the growth of other civilizations. These civilizations have also merged actually into other civilizations. Again, this is a very complex issue. The civilizations are not distinct. They are not distinct. You cannot say that the pharaohs had no relationship with the Greeks and the Greeks had no relationship with the Romans had no relationship with the Muslims. Actually, when if we take Islamic civilization, it took a lot from the Romans and the Greeks and the Asian civilizations, and the Romans and the Greeks also took from the civilizations that preceded them. So it is a very complex issue, but we are capable of today of distinguishing certain types of civilizations that actually start from those very simple civilizations to the sophisticated civilizations that we have. And remember that what I said um, at the beginning, that civilization is a concept, and as a concept it bears different understandings and opinions and explanations. And this is the lecture itself is not enough to understand the concept. It is there, it is enough to have a sense of this concept, to have a sense of what civilization means, but it is by no means enough to understand fully what civilization is. And that's why I say it again, it is very important to do reading over the year, whether for this module or for the others. What we'll see in the next lecture is those instances of civilization, starting from what we call the hunter gatherers, because human beings, before settling down, before choosing and deciding to settle down and be sedentary and have uh, a geographical space within which they will spend the rest of their lives, before they become that type of civilization, they had other types, starting with the hunter gatherers, that is, those human beings who lived on hunting, that is, chasing animals and eating them, and also exploiting all what the animals could give them, like, for instance, the clothes, thanks to the fur, or also shelter that animals could provide for them. Um, there are societies that lived on this kind of organization. That is one of the first prehistoric civilizations that we will see next time. So thank you very much, and I hope that I've been clear enough. I expect, of course, that you will have questions and things that you need, for which you need more clarifications, and I hope we'll have the opportunity to meet very soon in order to answer these questions. Thank you very much, and see ya.